The Rings of Power, known as the Three, were forged by Celebrimbor for the purposes of preservation, understanding, making, and healing. Of all the Rings of Power, they are perhaps the most mysterious. In one text, Tolkien describes the ring known as Vilya as the mightiest of the three, while describing the ring Nenya in another text as the chief of the three. Some seem to consider this an inconsistency, going as far as to say this was a mistake on Tolkien's part, a contradiction. Continuing my series on inconsistencies in Tolkien's work, I hope to show in this video that it is perfectly reasonable for Tolkien to describe Vilya and Nenya in this way, without it being a contradiction, by using two characters in the Legendarium as an explanation. Let's first look at how these rings are described in the text. The first quote is from The Lord of the Rings, and describes the blue ring, Vilya, worn by Elrond as the mightiest of the three. The second, from Unfinished Tales, describes the white ring, Nenya, worn by Galadriel as the chief of the three. Elrond wore a mantle of grey and had a star upon his forehead, and a silver harp was in his hand, and upon his finger was a ring of gold with a great blue stone. Vilya, mightiest of the three. Wielding the Elisar, all things grew fair about Galadriel, until the coming of the shadow to the forest. But afterwards, when Nenya, chief of the three, was sent to her by Celebrimbor, she needed it, as she thought, no more, and she gave it to Celebrian, her daughter, and so it came to Arwen and to Aragorn, who was called Elisar. Unfinished Tales seems to be disregarded by some people, with some assumption that the text is out of date. Some text within Unfinished Tales deserves its place within a book like the Silmarillion, but was left out due to editorial decisions made by Christopher Tolkien. Some text was even left out due to space constraints, or to simply provide a complete narrative. To me, it doesn't make this text less important. However, I do see The Lord of the Rings as taking precedence over Unfinished Tales when there is a contradiction. Some people then take the problem with these rings as Tolkien changing his mind over time, switching the greatest of the rings from Galadriel to Elrond. Others even say Tolkien simply made a mistake. I don't think you need to go that far at all, and say that Vilya can exist as the mightiest, while Nenya exists as the ring of highest authority, the chief ring. What is might? Much like power, it is a word often used but never fully explained. Might can be defined as the possession of great and impressive power. There's that word again. As for chief, it is the most important, the highest rank, the leader and the highest authority. Why would the mightiest ring need to be the chief ring? It could be that the position of the One Ring, as the master or ruling ring, makes people attribute its unique qualities elsewhere. It is the chief of all the rings, and it is the mightiest. We can use another example within the Legendarium, the Valar, Melkor and Manwë. Melkor is described by Eru Ilúvatar, the One, as the mightiest among the Ainur. This is said to be at a time before the descent into the physical world, where untold number of beings, the Ainur, existed. He stood as the mightiest among all who ever existed, and all those who eventually entered the physical world. We know that Melkor achieves remarkable feats with his might, often using his gifts in vulgar displays of power. However, even at the height of his greatness, he still isn't the chief figure, is he? Then Ilúvatar spoke, and he said, "Mighty are the Ainur, and mightiest among them is Melkor, but that he may know, and all the Ainur, that I am Iluvatar. Those things that ye have sung, I will show them forth, that ye may see what ye have done. What of Manwe? He is considered dearest to Eru, and understands most clearly the purposes of the One. While we are told that Melkor is the mightiest of all who came into the world, he is never placed in a position of authority above Manwe. Manwe doesn't have to be the mightiest, or display feats of pure power and strength. He is wise, grand in majesty, and holds others in allegiance to Eru. His importance and authority exceeds raw power and might. The mightiest of those Ainur who came into the world was in his beginning Melkor, but Manwe is dearest to Iluvatar and understands most clearly his purposes. He was appointed to be, in the fullness of time, the first of all kings, lord of the realm of Arda, and ruler of all that dwell therein. If we apply this idea to the three rings, it is possible that Celebrimbor saw Nenya as the most important of the three, even if Vilya was capable of utilizing power in some different way. We don't have text to back up why Celebrimbor would consider Nenya the most important, or if this importance was attributed to how it was used after it had been made, or who it had been gifted to. But we can speculate and say that if it was the first ring he made, then it could be dearest to him, and contain his great desire and will that was manifested in the work he undertook in the Second Age. However, we could also say it may have been the last he made, making it the culmination of his work, with Celebrimbor making it the most beautiful, and as a result of the perfection of the knowledge and skill he had gathered. Vilya could absolutely be the mightiest of the three. Even though we know the three rings were not made as weapons of war or domination, it could still be possible that Vilya was capable of the protection and defence of Imladris from the Ringwraiths through physical destruction, cleansing the land with the waters contained within it, as they tainted it when they crossed the ford. At the same time, Nenya can be the most important ring, the greatest of them, symbolically or for reasons Tolkien never explains. Unless you consider might to be the most important thing, which goes against everything we read about in the Legendarium. If might was the most important thing, then Glorfindel, Aragorn or Gandalf would have carried the ring to Mordor. Melkor would have been the authority over Manwe. I believe this would only be an inconsistency on Tolkien's part if he described both rings as chief and mightiest, which isn't the case. Unfortunately, it is more difficult to try and define what these terms mean in relation to the rings. They are already vastly mysterious, and the differences between the three rings are not described to us in any great detail. We just know they are all different from the others, due to the nature of their creation, and the lack of Sauron's direct presence and influence in their making. Sauron craved the three rings, and whether it was the mightiest or the chief of them was not important to him. This is not an inconsistency, and is in my opinion a reader's misuse of words like power, might, and authority.